Hi, today I'm going to do another book review, this time on Billy Summers. So, I finished Stephen King's newest novel quite a while ago now, and I thought that today I'd make a review on it. So, here we are. Not very recently, actually probably within the past 5 to 10 years, Stephen King has started to gravitate towards crime rather than horror, and Billy Summers wipes pretty much every ounce of horror out of the story. This is a straight suspense crime book. It's quite a difficult book to explain because it has a lot of ambitions, but yeah, if I was to give it a straight description, I'd call it a crime drama with some suspenseful elements in here. The most important part about this book is that it's actually really, really good. So let's gush about it for a while. So my edition of Billy Summers is 432 pages. So it's definitely a much larger book than his second most recent novel, which was Later. And don't get me wrong, Later was a really good, fantastic, entertaining little read. But at least to me, Billy Summers feels more like a fully fleshed out novel. Later felt very, very compact and fast and short, which is what it was meant to be because it's like a 200-page book that takes place over about 20 years. But to me, at least Billy Summers really, really feels like a properly fleshed out book, and I'm so happy to see it. I just really like the way that this book goes into everything in heaps of detail, and it doesn't just skim over everything. It has a lot of room to breathe. The only thing is the pacing is pretty wonky in this book, but I'll get to that later on. Billy Summers is very difficult to describe, especially plot-wise, because it goes in like a million different directions. But basically, it's about Billy Summers, this guy, and he's out for hire. He's a killer for hire, and he'll only do the job if he believes that the person he's going to kill is a really bad person. But now he wants out of the job, and because it's a book, it has to have a plot. What could go wrong? Pretty much everything. This book also recounts a lot of Billy's life story in a way that is really, really clever, and I love those parts of the book. So yeah, you're basically just hanging out with Billy, a very interesting and compelling character who is just brilliant. One of my favourite protagonists that King has written in quite a long time. Billy Summers is told in a very peculiar way. It is mostly told in third person in a present tense, which is pretty jarring and difficult to get used to. But it sometimes switches to first person in the past tense. So it jumps around a lot. But surprisingly, it never feels forced or out of place when the different perspectives are changing. And Stephen King just does that in such a genius way. It is like, you read this book and you think, oh, this is just written by an author at the absolute top of his game. It is incredible. I think this book took close to as many risks as I've ever seen in any book take, and it's just been pulled off so well. And because the plot just constantly changes, you'd think it'd be hard to get your head around, but it's really not. It's truly a genius book. I think the characters in this book are some of the best characters that King has written in a while. Billy himself is super interesting, and there's another character that's introduced into the book who's probably my favourite Stephen King character since Jake or Sadie from 11/22/63. This other character is very likeable and, like Billy, is very, very interesting and compelling to read about. I also love the villains in this story, and while they aren't, anything special, they're definitely serviceable and are quite interesting too, like everyone else in the book. Obviously this is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to go into any detail, but I have to say that this has one of the best endings to any Stephen King book that I've read. This is one of my new favourite endings of his. It was very unexpected and very powerful. It was like the whole story was tied off in a perfectly surprising way, which was very heartwarming, and I really like the ending of this book. It's definitely the best part of the whole book. Now, if I had one complaint, it would be that the pacing is a little wonky in some parts. I'd say that like the first 100 pages or so of this book are a little too slow for me, and although I definitely enjoyed reading it, it gave off a completely different impression of the book than how I view it now that I've finished. Because the pacing really does speed up after the 150-page mark or so, and everything moves just so well. But at the start, it does start off a little bit rocky. Billy Summers gets an 88% from me. Despite its flaws, it was a super impactful story that I absolutely love and would definitely consider rereading in the future. As much as I love Stephen King's horror works, he has really nailed the crime novels, and I'm very excited to see what else he has in store for us in this kind of vein. Anyway, that was my review on Billy Summers. Feel free to let me know what you thought of this book, because I know it was a little hit or miss for some people, but yeah, just let me know because I'm curious. I'll see you later. Izzy, stop teasing the dog! Lindy! I'm sorry. She's a naughty bitch, isn't she? She's teasing me. My cat's teasing my dog. She's not a very nice cat. At least to Lindy, she's not. But to us, she's fine. But holy shit, she's a naughty cat.